I was rejected on a blind date. Then a stranger asked, "Can you start over with me?" The glass of water trembled in my hand as I watched her smile politely, the kind of smile that ends things before they even begin. In that quiet, sunlit corner of the cafe, I realized I had just been rejected again. Not loudly, not cruelly, but in the softest, most final way possible. The kind that leaves no room for hope, only silence and self-doubt. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that can change hearts, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Brightly Kindness. You never know whose life a simple story might touch. She stood up, adjusted her dress, and thanked me for the nice afternoon, though we had barely been sitting for 15 minutes. Her words were gentle, but they carried weight. She said I was a good person, just not the right one. That sentence echoed in my mind like a verdict. I nodded, pretending I understood, pretending it didn't hurt, pretending I hadn't spent days imagining this moment going differently. When she walked away, the empty chair across from me felt heavier than her presence ever could have. The roses I had brought, bright red, carefully chosen, now looked foolish sitting between two half-empty glasses of water. People around me laughed, clinked cups, and lived their lives, completely unaware that mine felt like it had paused. This wasn't my first rejection. It wasn't even my worst, but something about that day broke a quiet part of me I didn't know was still holding on. Maybe it was the hope I had allowed myself to feel, or the belief that this time could be different. I had told myself to stay guarded, to not expect too much, but hope has a way of slipping in through the smallest cracks. I sat there longer than I should have, staring at nothing, replaying every second. Was it something I said? The way I dressed? The way I smiled? The mind becomes a cruel place when you're left alone with unanswered questions. Every flaw feels magnified, every insecurity confirmed. Eventually, I stood up, ready to leave behind another failed attempt at connection. I picked up the roses, unsure whether to throw them away or carry them home as a reminder of yet another disappointment. As I turned toward the exit, I felt a strange heaviness, not just in my chest, but in my steps. It was as if every rejection I had ever faced was walking out with me. But just as I reached the door, something unexpected happened. A voice, soft but steady, stopped me. Not loud enough to draw attention, but strong enough to reach through the noise in my head. I turned around, confused, and saw someone sitting at a nearby table. She hadn't been part of my world a moment ago, yet somehow she had seen everything. There was something different in her eyes, not pity, not curiosity, but understanding. The kind that doesn't need explanations. She didn't rush. She didn't make it awkward. She simply looked at me and said something that felt impossible in that moment. Something that didn't fit with the rejection I had just experienced. Something that challenged the narrative I had already accepted. "Can you start over with me?" The question hung in the air, fragile and powerful at the same time. For a second, I thought I had misheard. Start over? With me? After everything that had just happened? Felt unreal, like a scene from a story I didn't belong in. My first instinct was to laugh it off, to protect myself from what could be another disappointment. But something about her sincerity made it hard to walk away. She wasn't trying to impress me. She wasn't trying to save me. She was simply offering a moment, a chance to rewrite the ending of a day that had already gone wrong. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to say yes, but because I was afraid of what saying yes might mean. Hope, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. It demands courage, the kind you don't always have after being hurt. Still, I found myself sitting down, not because I was confident, but because I was tired of letting fear decide everything. We didn't rush into anything. There was no grand gesture, no dramatic shift. Just two people sitting across from each other, sharing a quiet moment. She didn't ask about the rejection. She didn't force conversation. Instead, she spoke about simple things, life, small joys, the little moments that often go unnoticed. Slowly, the tension in my chest began to loosen. For the first time that day, I wasn't overthinking every word. I wasn't trying to be someone else. I was just there. And somehow that was enough. The roses that once felt like a symbol of failure now sat between us again, but they looked different. Not because they had changed, but because the meaning behind them had. They were no longer about rejection. They were about possibility. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the cafe, I realized something I hadn't understood before. Rejection isn't always an ending. Sometimes it's a redirection, a quiet push towards something you didn't even know you needed. That day didn't magically fix everything. It didn't erase my insecurities or guarantee a perfect future. But it gave me something far more valuable, a reminder that even in your lowest moments, life can surprise you. That kindness can come from strangers. That second chances don't always look the way you expect them to. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something. If this moment touched your heart, if you've ever felt rejected or lost and still found the courage to keep going, please comment below and share your story. Your words might be the hope someone else needs today. As I walked away from the cafe that evening, I wasn't thinking about the rejection anymore. I was thinking about the question that had changed everything. Can you start over? And for the first time in a long time, my answer wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with something softer, something stronger, yes. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that even broken moments can lead to beautiful beginnings, take a moment to like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe to Brightly Kindness, because sometimes all it takes is one story to remind us that we're not alone.